we can't release this. Kitchen party. Getting people to sign signatures when they're getting yelled at, going, fuck off.
So I will get a job at Amnesty International just to shut you up.
Just to make you shut the hell up. You have honorary citizenship of Sri Lanka. This fire where I'm like, nah, I've got this energy. I've got to put it towards something like that and I won't stop.
Thank you for being with us today on Hot Nerds. Here with me today is Chamira Gamage.
Mate. Yeah, once again, you have honorary citizenship of Sri Lanka.
Thank you very much.
You can go to a hotel in Colombo anytime, man.
I look forward to it. Chamira Gamage is a multi-talented man of passion and action, an entrepreneur, philanthropy manager, and social advocate. Raised in Armidale, regional Australia, he was a philanthropy manager and campaign advisor at Amnesty International, instrumental in the successful Free Julian Assange campaign and the refugee release campaign in Manus Island and Nauru, among many others. He is now a senior relationship manager at the Children's Medical Research Institute. Along the way, he also co-founded the startup Thinkrs to promote critical thinking in news, media, and is co-host of social, cultural, and tech podcast, The Three Browns.
Yeah, the Browns.
Yeah, the Browns. Playfully titled.
Aptly.
Chamira was a beta reader for my debut novel and provided the first of the cover reviews. I first met him on a living room floor my first day living on campus at university. Look at us now.
We will have to clarify that story.
Or will we? Yeah. Welcome, Chom.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for being here today on Hot Nerds. How are you?
Oh, man, so good to be here, man. It's awesome. It's awesome to be here again.
Yes, we will flag. We had a technical difficulty, but we're back in now. So
you're also the only person that calls me Chom, like CHOM. I was thinking that today. Like everyone calls me Chum that I grew up with in Armidale.
Was that just me mispronouncing when we first met?
Mate, just like you mispronounced my name at the start. You're just carrying on the tradition.
Yeah.
But it's cool. Keep it that way.
I just want to keep... I brought you on here today to just disrespect you.
Pretty much. I mean, that's clearly what's going on.
This is a very different start
to what we did
the
before.
First.
It's very formal last time, wasn't it? It's very...
We now have no fucks given.
Yeah. No, we left them at the table
after the tech issues.
Correct.
No stress though. I'm happy to
These things happen.
We've got serious topics, but an unhinged attitude now.
Correct. No alcohol needed.
Indeed. But we will grab some.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting me be here, man.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure. And I think we kicked off half an hour ago, with a bit of a comparison to your studio in Blacktown, because you also have a podcast called the Hot Nerds. Mate, this re-record, I am falling off, and I'm not mad about it. We've been professional for 5 episodes.
Yeah, shout out to the Hot Three Browns.
The Hot Three Browns.
The Hot Three Browns. So I'm glad to be here to represent.
Yeah. And we will jump into some chats about that, because it's one of many projects that you've started with teams. You do so many things. In that bio, I didn't even mention you as a music producer and singer with the Milson Bros. Can we get a quick little vocal from you of the chorus of my favorite song?
We got places to go and everything in between. Man, it's been a while.
It's been a while. Why has it been a while? Is it just because you're busy as? Is it just a busy life?
It's honestly that. Look, the other half of Milson's Bros, so Fabio from Milano, we worked together in recruitment. He was the marketing manager and quite a famous singer in Italy. He went touring with his band. And he's an amazing producer, and he's so good at whipping up a song in 10 minutes. He just struggled with writing because of his English, right? So I always love copywriting and writing blogs and stories. And he was like, bro, can you write the songs for me? It's very good. I was like, oh man, I used to do beats, sing like R&B in school at uni with Sheik, our mutual friend.
Craig David
covers and whatever it may be, and a lot of satirical covers for the uni events, and I hadn't written in so many years, and he's like, can you write for me? I wrote a few songs for him, and I was like, I love this. And he's like, you have to sing one of them. I'm like, all right, cool. just give me a lot of auto-tune. It'll be sweet. we got that done. And then he moved back to Milan in 2019, but we pumped out a few songs before that. And it's quite expensive, man. You'd know, recording, mastering, mixing, like all that's like thousands of dollars. So we got into business as other parts of our side hustles and projects, let's call them, and we ended up just focusing on them. So he's released a few songs. I've written a couple more for him, but we haven't gone back in the studio for a while. But I'm sure it will happen again, no doubt. Do
you miss that?
Yeah, man. I miss I say to Such, I'm like, if I was to retire and money wasn't an issue and blah, 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 I would literally just sit there and just make music. I would just sit there and any idea that came to mind, you know how it is, that free-flowing, like, what do they call the MPC? You know, the drum beat machines where you can... Yeah.
I thought you were about to talk about non-player
characters. No, definitely not NPCs. We don't want to be an NPC.
Main character energy.
We want main character energy. That's it. One life, you know? And yeah, just sit there and chop up some tracks, do some sampling, come up with some melodies and sing, I reckon. It would just be the most free-flowing creative process. I'm sure you'd probably be similar, but one day we'll get back there.
That and writing books.
Yeah.
And doing things that have an impact for humanity,
society.
Which is also kind of where your creativity goes to now, or has done, you know, for the last, you know, almost 10 years in terms of the projects you've been working on. Something we were talking about earlier was the the variety of things that you've worked on.
Yes.
And how a lot of that came from, you know, different sparks of inspiration, but they were all kind of, you know, waves of energy that you just had to surf.
Yeah, man.
Which also require, you know, it requires some balancing, and you know, but you know, to kind of reiterate some of that we were talking about, how have you balanced that over time, and how do you approach getting that energy out there into the world?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. I think for anyone that creates anything, like whether it's again a blog, you know, a movie, a song, a business, a job, like whatever it may be. I was saying this earlier, right? Like the inspiration to create something, you can't choose it. Like you can't pick and say, you know, this is the thing, whatever. It's like this wave of inspiration and motivation, rather. It hits you and you can't waste it. That's the biggest thing, I think, for me. So this wave of doing multiple projects in different areas, like whether it's music, tech, social impact, it just came to me where I was like, this is the direction I want to go in. Impact's important to me. Creating's important to me. I don't want to waste it. Like that feeling of, if I don't act, what if it doesn't come back? It was kind of a little bit out of fear too, but also pure motivation. And I had this little bucket list thing, you know, before 30. I had all these things I wanted to do. I want to write a song. I want to sing a song. I want to impact, you know, 1 million people, or like all these little, in a positive way, to make their life better. There was all these little things where I was like, eventually I have to try and do it. So it was a nice little hard stop for that decade of life. And by the time I'd built those habits in from like 28 to 30, so I very packed them all into a short period of time. It carried over to like now, coming up to mid-30s, crazy. So I've learned how to balance it a lot better. I think I was saying earlier as well, you know, I was a recruiter in a past life, and that life was 9 to 6, 8 to 6. You're so drained from the pace, the volume of that job.
Ew.
That you ain't doing a side hustle after work. You are crashing, you're re-energizing, or you're partying. And so only when I moved to Amnesty when I was 28 in 2018, purely out of passion and a lack of fulfillment. I was like, recruitment game was great for a period of time, just wasn't fulfilling at the outcome stage. What is the outcome of all this input that I'm putting in? And for me, I wanted to really go back to my roots of like social impact. I studied like international law, international relations. I've done bigger brother programs in Armidale for Indigenous youth in the community. You know, it was drilled into me to give back to community and find a way to positively impact people's lives. And
who drilled that into you, or what drilled that into you?
It was, honest, I grew up with it. I think it was two things. It was my dad was a big influence. Dad grew up in a village in the south of Sri Lanka. And, you know, no one in his family or village at all had made it to uni. And he ended up being the first. He was a very bright kid. and was lucky that his dad, owned the local store. So there was a radio, which was a rarity. So he taught himself English, read the paper and teach himself English.
Wow.
Got a scholarship to one of the best unis at the time. Did sociology, which was very rare at the time as well. All these little things that added up. Flew over, to Australia, Hawaii. Came back to Australia. Kind of made a real life for everyone. He, no matter what he did, he became a professor throughout most of his life. But he was always like, just always remember the people that don't have the same opportunities. Always remember people that have helped you. Like, you have to give back. You are not just an individual. You are a member of society. You're a member of a community. And even now, like, he's like, Puta, you have to be part of community, okay? You need to join communities. Like, you can't live as yourself, People, as he's getting older, he's just so focused on it. And he's like, these Western societies, everyone is quite individualistic and they like to focus on themselves. And don't forget, eventually you'll want a community. You'll need them to sustain you. So get in, do it early. And I guess that was in the back of my head. But there was just a natural, growing up in Armidale, we have a huge Indigenous population, a lot of refugees in Armidale for a very small country town of 20,000 people. It's a kind of melting pot there, which you wouldn't expect out in the country.
Plus you've got the music culture.
Yeah, awesome music scene over there. The uni helps all that too. And then you've got like the classic traditional ag farmers that are there, and so it kind of stuck with me. And I'd always get fired up when I'd see an unjust situation where someone's being picked on or they're just upset because something's happened to them and it's just unfair. That sense inside you where you're like, nah, it's not right. We've got to do something about it. And I think, as I got older, like that desire to really impact some of the most important things for society at scale is what really drove me. It was like this fire where I'm like, nah, I've got this energy. Like I've got to put it towards something like that and I won't stop. Will Smith, I think, said it once. He's like, if you put me on a treadmill next to another guy, he's like, I don't care what you say. Like, I'm winning. Like, I'm not stopping. Like, it doesn't matter if my legs, what happens to them. Like, I will never be the last one to stop. And I, kind of had that mentality. I just needed to put it towards something. And so it kind of naturally lended towards business and a hard challenge, like doing a startup and human rights, back to my roots, and the Assange campaign, where I was like, this is one of the most difficult cases in the world. It's very unjust. And we're going up against the US government. This is the hardest fight of them all in a sense.
The biggest
what
dog
can we
in
do?
the world.
Yeah. Like, no one can budge them. What can we do? Let's give it a shot. And so it's kind of how all that started. But I think the balance wasn't there during those days, but now it's a lot better.
Well, I'm looking forward to coming back to your time at Amnesty and the Assange case especially. Sure. But this energy that you've got obviously fueled your decision to join Amnesty.
Yes.
But it also fueled your startup attempts and successes and failures in those spaces, as well as providing, I guess, platforms for you to really try things out. But but like you said, you had to do these outside of office hours because you were still working full time, even when you joined Amnesty, you were doing, these projects outside of time. So how was it? Just the fact that you were blessed with the energy? How did you navigate all that?
Yeah. It was. It kind of felt like to me that I had wasted a few years without doing projects, and it wasn't just because of recruitment. I had just shut myself off from creativity. It's like a muscle, man. For anyone listening, you grow up and you're a great painter or a writer or whatever, and life kind of beats it out of you if you take the standard path and you don't actively maintain that skill, right? And it doesn't even you don't even have to think about it as a skill. It's just output. Like, write the blog. Doesn't have to be great. It's probably shit, but the next one will be better, and the next one will be better, and you've done it. And there's a body of work. And I was really keen to just get a body of work out there with something that I cared about and be part of, like I said, a movement where I could use my skills to influence it for the better. Like it was, Amnesty thankfully wasn't as grueling as the recruitment side of things. And because I cared about it so much from my core, it was like this infinite source of energy. And, you know, the more I would like, you know, at Amnesty, I started as a philanthropy manager. So I was meeting philanthropists that had made their money. They were trying to impact society and give money in large chunks to do so. And the reason I chose that job is because in my head, I was like, at the end of the day, if we're going to have this money, we can utilize it for the better. And if you get 100K or a mil in one hit, I'm pretty sure you're going to achieve your goal 10 years quicker, 5 years quicker than the other way. So why not do that? And I wanted to meet people like that. I wanted to direct their money towards things that were important. And I learned from them that, yeah, you have to have energy. Like the people that really get things done and, you know, you don't want to look back with regrets. To do the things you want to do, you've got to maintain that. You need a source of that. And I think working on things that make you passionate is a big part of that. Working on hard problems that you can tolerate is a big part of that. You know, there are hard problems that just drain you and you're exhausted. But if you care about that problem enough, you'll go to the nth degree. And that's worth doing in life. I really think that's part of what our calling is. What's your unique hard challenge that you can bear that others can't, but you know, you can get that done, or you can put a dent in it.
What kind of discomfort can you find comfort in?
Because discomfort's Buddhism, right? Existence is suffering. Exactly. I grew up as a Buddhist. We went to Catholic school, but I always had the Buddhist principles from dad and represent, you know, and I wouldn't call myself a Buddhist or, to be honest, but I really, really connected to the messages, and I meditated growing up, which was a great thing that, again, was instilled from my family, which really benefited me to... I think neuroplasticity was a big part of that, like visualizing what you want to achieve and who you want to be, and stillness, all of that.
Do you still meditate?
I do not. It's dropped off. It's phases. It's like peaks and troughs of like, I'll get back into it for a month, and then I'll just forget about it for ages and go, oh man, feel a little bit of discontent with how many things are going on or how things are going, and all it takes is like 10 minutes of stillness, 5 minutes of deep breathing. I do like sauna with my wife, you know, every now and then at City Cave, and that also helps just have stillness, and doing that together is really nice. But, you know, going back to existence is suffering, it was like such a... yeah. If just to solve the universe...
Jake's existence is suffering.
No, we, you know... like my interpretation of that, I know you had some people who are related to Buddhism, spirituality, and Vedic meditation recently, and it got me thinking before the pod. But you know, that concept for me, I was like, man, that's fucking depressing as all shit. When I was growing up, I'm like 10 years old, you're telling me that the answer is that existence is suffering. I'm like, well, then what's the point? But you got to find a way out of that.
Everything is nothing. It's like, what?
Yeah, you will suffer.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thanks, bro. Cheers. Yeah, I'm 10 years old, mate. You got to find a way around that. But Buddha was right. Like, life will throw you curveballs. You don't know when it's coming. It's probably coming eventually, right? So you got to live it to the fullest, and you got to find what motivates you. What cross can you bear, you know, metaphorically, that no one else perhaps can carry as well as you can, or you feel equipped to carry and you think is worthwhile. That could be anything. It's very broad, but it could be anything. I think that's a big crux of what your little unique existence in life is. Like, what are the chances? It's like trillions to one that you're even alive, that you even made it here, and then you're gone in a blimp, right? When you look at how many people have lived. So you got to capitalize on that.
You got to bring it.
You got to bring that. You got to bring that shit. Yeah.
And when you were working on Thinkrs, did it feel like you were bringing that shit?
Yeah, it was probably I think that and the Assange work was probably the peak of bringing that shit. I couldn't think of anything more aligned with who I was when I was working on the Assange campaign. And Thinkrs being a startup, something that was born from your own interest that you built from the ground up, like I just couldn't fathom that I was doing that sort of work. And, you know, people build startups all the time, and they're probably like, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Or like, dude, it's not that big a deal. But for me, at the very least, I never thought I'd be doing that for most of my life. So I think from a very short period of time, I went from going, I want to do this, and then it started to happen because I literally just went, I'm doing it. And I think it's just that simple for anyone listening too. It's like, you know, you just literally take that first step and know that it won't be great, but it'll get better. Thinkrs aligned with my values. I grew up very passionate about critical thinking. My dad, again, talked to me a lot about that as an academic, a sociology and education academic. He'd always be like, I'd ask him one question like, Dad, why is there war in, Palestine, between Palestine and Israel? And he's like, Puta, the thing is, okay, in 1921, right? And I'm like, Dad, just give me the answer. And he's like, you don't understand. You think I want to give you just some bullshit answer?
Yeah.
I'll give you the proper answer.
He's
you
got
need
100
to know
years
the context.
of history to go
Yeah.
through.
He's like, I want you to know all the context. And so that was always drilled in. And at uni, I did sociology, I did international business, but critical thinking was a big part of sociology. And so similar to yourself, learning it at uni, the concepts of critical thinking and assess sources, primary sources, secondary sources, what are their biases, what are their motivations, thinking about information like that was such an eye-opening thing that's now second nature, but it takes work. And I really wish, again, it could be part of school curriculum. It is a little bit now.
Yeah, we're saying, I've spoken to a few friends in secondary teaching, saying that I'm not sure if it's officially in the curriculum yet, or if these ideas are just coming through naturally. I'd have to double check, but there is at least the conversation around critical thinking. 100%. Because that's what we were saying. Why did it take a fourth year uni course in a one of your art subjects? We both did business and arts.
Yes.
And, I mentioned to you that strange thing of, especially when I was studying in Texas, where you're going from a business class learning about how great American corporations are, and then you go to a Mexican-American history and you hear how bad American corporations are.
And you're like, which one is it?
Yeah. And then to have a framework to go, oh, this is actually critical thinking, and there are strategies within that you should be using.
100%.
Which feeds directly into media literacy.
Yes.
Because that is where we have to navigate these biases, knowing who funds which papers and which journalists, and that's essentially what Thinkrs was trying to break down. Right?
Correct. Yeah, it's very, very good assessment. It was it started in 2020 when the US election was happening, and I was watching, everyone was in lockdown and I had the news on, and it was like, one side is saying literally one very biased opinion, and then the other side is literally the opposite. And I went, this is doing my head in, watching this every day and just seeing two people say completely opposing things. And whoever listens to either side goes, I know I'm the right side. They're wrong, I'm right. And I was like, this ain't good for society. Mainstream media was declining, but they were still the pillar at that time, I think. They're definitely declining, but they were still like, if they say things, it's usually correct. And I was like, this is doing my head in. I had this wave of like motivation to build something, and I went, I'd love it to apply it to this. And it was also linked to the Assange work, where the reason I was so interested and cared so much was because WikiLeaks was never disputed. No one ever denied a WikiLeak. It was like, that's a fact. It's straight from the horse's mouth. You can't dispute it. Someone reads that or sees it, like, we now have shared truth. Now we can move forward constructively. If you're listening to a commentator on a news program's opinion on something, and they're saying one thing and then the other guy's saying something else, like, that ain't a shared truth. That's a perspective or a perception that you're putting forward, right? So that people will see it from one angle.
So what role was Thinkrs attempting to play in navigating that?
Yeah, so I was like, how do we... I sit here and read like 5 to 10 articles on one topic in a day to make sure I'm getting the full story. And I'm like, there's no way that most people are doing that. Like, even I struggled to do that. It was painful. But I was interested enough to learn. And so by the end of that, I went, okay, I feel like my opinions changed so much from reading that first Guardian article or that first Australian article, whatever it is, right? And so I went, okay, how do we get rid of that friction and all those steps? Okay, AI. It was 2020. It was before ChatGPT.
Indeed. Different landscape.
AI was like a bit of a scary thing for people. Not as scary as it's become in a way, but it was still exciting and had a lot of promise as well. Just like most tech, it's like, it could be really bad or really good. Fire can kill you, it can feed you, right? It can heat up your food. So I went, what if we could build, using a critical thinking methodology of how do I read news articles? Have we been taught the proper way to read news articles to get to the truth? It's check primary sources. It's check the historical bias of that org, who funds that org, why would they want to push this message, how recent is the article, is it outdated, what are the other topics, what are the other political spectrum orgs saying about it.
And even people that they're interviewing in those sources,
Yeah.
like, you know, how that's being framed or the questions getting put to one versus another. Or
Correct. It's framing. Framing is a huge part of it. And so, yeah, we got to that point and I went, what if we could build an AI model? And I wasn't a tech guy. So I went to a co-founder matching platform called StartHawk, I think, .io, and random bunch of people all over the world who could build AI products were there. And I went, all right, this dude's an Aussie that's gone to CERN, working on the Large Hadron Collider. That sounds bloody cool. Did a quick Zoom with him. He goes, man, I love the idea. Let's build it. And
for the people listening at home, remind us what the Hadron Collider is.
The LHC, that.
The LHC.
So in Geneva, the secrets of the universe are being studied every day by physicists and scientists and machine learning experts who they've built an underground tunnel. It's called the Hadron Collider, where it's like a big circle, and they literally get electrons and atoms and they shoot them and fire them into that cylinder, into that circle, and get them to crash into each other and collide. And when they collide, it's like at 1 billion times a second or something. It's crazy. And then it splinters off. And they're doing that to understand what the smallest measurement of the smallest thing that we know, an atom, is. Can we discover something new? We're going to break it apart. Like, can we learn about the Big Bang Theory from all this? And so Dan
basically is the fabric of
everything. Secrets of the universe. Yeah, the fabric of everything around us and how it works. And so that's where that Higgs boson, the God particle was discovered, I think in like 2012 or something like that, through that process. Man, this is definitely hot nerds. I'm telling you, we get nerdy. And so he manages the AI. This guy's job was to look at the collision, and he and the team built an AI model which could predict with 99.9% accuracy how the atom would splinter as it collided. And with that, and it could do it to a hundredth of a millisecond. It was faster than like Facebook's models and all that. And so we were like, this is bloody cool. Why don't we use some of this for news? Because that's what we care about. There are like 2,000 articles on, the Russia-Ukraine war today. But what if your model could scan all 2,000 and label and classify them as, these 100 are quite similar, let's cluster those. These 100 are similar, but say something different. And then we came together with this full story coverage feature, which was like, today Putin did this, but 40% of news articles from all over the world said that he did this, 40% said this, and 20% said this. And so the summary is this. But if you read one of those articles, this is what I was saying, right? It's like a disease. If you read one perspective on a topic, then you go tell your mate and you're like, hey, did you hear how blah, blah, blah did this? Or how this happened? And they go, what? That's crazy. They tell 10 people. They tell another 10. And then everyone thinks that the story is this fragment of the story. But if you can get the whole thing in one go, you're far more likely to actually pass on something that's maybe not perfect, but closer to the truth. And so that was the mission. So we built a Chrome extension which would scan a news article as you read it, a drop down, and it would populate with the percentage so it would basically say this article is 10% of the whole story. You're missing 90%. And here's what the other 90% is. And here are the biases. Here's the recency. Here are alternative sources saying something different. You're far more informed after that. And that was very fulfilling to see something like that come to fruition from an idea, no idea how it was going to work. Literally 4 a.m. phone calls with people. There was an app called Lunch Club when COVID first started in March, and you needed to live in San Francisco or New York to meet up with people building tech products and trying to do cool ideas. And I got, was part of like a startup hub, and I like paid like $400 for this thing. I was like, cool, I'm going to like leverage this free time. And someone goes, here's my Lunch Club, code. You can use it to log in. And I went, cool. What the hell's Lunch Club? And I was like, oh man, I have no access to these people. But now that everyone has a level playing field because of COVID, everyone's at home. I can just Zoom these people now. But I don't live in New York, so I just set my location in New York, used the discount code, and just started meeting all these randos. The time difference was shit. So anyway, I'd be like, cool, like, what are you working on? Like, do you want to do this? could you fit in and help us with and ended up meeting so many cool people. And so that networking drive and I guess skill from my job, having to network with people, really helped to like make something happen, which I never thought possible. And that even led to emailing Noam Chomsky and the co-founder of Wikipedia, Larry Sanger, our methodology for Thinkrs, saying, can you review this? We want you to approve it. And I messaged like 10 people, and there were like 2 that cool names that got back to me. And I was like, this is bloody awesome.
Noam Chomsky, man.
Noam Chomsky, man. The guy, like, literally, I emailed him and I attached him like a 10-page methodology. Looking back, I'm like, oh man, I'm such an idiot. I should have just made it a 1-pager and gone, can you read the 1-pager? Because he was like, I love this idea. I'm just writing a book and I'm so busy. Can I get back to you? And I like kept following up with him. I even asked him, I'm like, man, really ambitious guy. Like, I love what you do. Do you want to be my mentor? Like shooting my shot. And he's like, again, I'm just so busy, but I'll keep doing what you're doing. And then he had a brief skim over it and he went, look, I like your points. Stick with it. It's good. Go ahead. I'm like, cool. Now I can say that to people.
Noam Chomsky approved.
So Noam Chomsky's a fan. Yeah. We're best mates now. Man, he's my best mate.
Pass me his email.
Yeah.
I'll send the book to him.
Yeah, you should. Well, apparently he replies quickly on email. He's like 90, man. He's going strong. And Larry Sanger looked at it too, and he's anti-Wikipedia. He left Wikipedia after founding it. He said it's become very, very biased, and the model of Wikipedia is corrupted, where like 10 people edit like 90% of all the wikis, and a lot of them, from his opinion, have been bought and paid for to be quite biased towards one political side or one opinion or one business.
I have heard this.
You're right.
Like governments,
he hates
teams.
Yeah, and this is the co-founder. Man, I'm like, okay, if he's saying that, I need to dig into this. And
so you need to apply Thinkrs to even Wikipedia.
We were gonna use Wikipedia articles to like inform you of things within an article, and then after that convo I was like, dude, I can't do that. So he's built like his own Wikipedia wiki. It was called, oh man, I can't remember what it was called, the Knowledge Project or something, which I don't think it really took off, but I always remembered what he said. He goes, my loyalty is to the truth. He goes, no matter what, I don't care about how I look, I don't care about which political side I look better with or who I offend or whatever. He's like, my loyalty is to the truth. And I went, man, that's such I know it sounds so simple, but it's such a radical thing to say as a public figure, where you go, it's a hard thing to do, because by doing that, you push consensus and society away from you. But you're like, I'm probably right though.
But that's only when public consensus is wrong.
That's only when public consensus is wrong. Exactly.
Yeah, which is often.
Which is often, because public, and then obviously it's right as well, and that's where the discernment comes in. And you got to really make up your own mind and have your own opinion and evaluate it. And this is complex topics, right? This is like authority bias. It's like the thing that's drilled in. Just because someone is in a position of expertise or power doesn't mean that they're always right, but it doesn't mean that they're wrong. Right? So,
well, plus, you were talking before about, well, in general, you're trying to look at Thinkrs with the media. Thinkrs is now, you've left it as a Chrome extension that's still available, but the media revenue model is not exactly
it was a
something you can
harsh
sustain.
reality,
But at the same time, the need for media literacy is still so high. I mean, are you still as involved in that world as you were? And when you watch, we've just had another US election. Yeah. We've got the Australian election coming up.
Yep.
How do you look at the splintering of the media? And, you even were speaking earlier about the decline of mainstream media.
Yep.
With the intersection of Thinkrs and the mission there, and, trying to navigate these biases. How do you look at that? And is this distrust in the mainstream media because of, who's bought and paid for, where the biases are, where the cultural norms are just so ingrained and you can't dissent against X, Y, or Z? How do you see that future of media and splintering?
I think,
given that you were in this space for so long,
we went so deep into it too, like to understand why there was bias, like what kind of splintering and bias, like why is it that you have better retention if someone's reading entertainment news. You have better retention and people are more willing to pay for news if it's relating to making the money or finance. You have better
as an investment.
Yeah, because they're going to get something back from it that's tangible.
For the average person, investment for someone else.
Yeah, yeah. And, if they're listening to something they agree with, obviously they're more likely to pay. So it was difficult. It was a difficult lane for us. I pitched like 60 VCs and funders at one point. I quit Amnesty to do it. I was like, this is my chance to like just give this a crack. Whether it fails or not, doesn't matter. I'll learn and make contacts, and it's worth giving it a go. And we couldn't secure funding. It was really, really tough, but part of the process. But a lot of people, again, they're like, we seriously love what you're doing. Like, quickest meeting that we all agreed to, and we love it, and we trust you guys. It's just we just don't think that people are increasing their expenditure to media in that space. And also from the studies we looked at from different orgs, media bodies, like it just showed that people want multiple sources, but they'll still pay for news they agree with. And so it's like people want one thing, but their nature will still trump, what they logically want to do. And so that was quite difficult. We couldn't maintain like that revenue model where it was self-sustaining, and we couldn't all do that full-time with full-time jobs. So we pulled back on the app and that concept, and we've got the models which we own, and which is awesome because they can be applied to very different things. We've kept the extension for now, which can do some basic analysis, on articles while you read it. Thinkrs.co, shout out.
Represent, baby.
Represent. No E. And so that was a big part of it. But I think the future of news media, especially after this election, where, a lot of people say that Trump, capitalized on the podcasting scene and the streamers. He went on all these, Adam Ross, Case and Nat, like all these sort of streamers at Sketch, iShowSpeed, people that people haven't really heard of before. But
they have cultural capital.
They have so much cultural capital today. And I saw like a post analysis on CNN with a bunch of Democrat commentators, and they were like saying, my son is saying, why aren't you talking on Kai Cenat? And he goes, what's a Kai Cenat? What the hell's an Adam Ross? And he's like, shouldn't we be getting LeBron and Jay-Z? And they're like, no one cares, man. You need to go to streamers. That's where the kids are watching. And so Trump's son apparently was the one going, you need to go on this, that. And, for better or for worse, it was like, is that the reality of distribution and access to society in today's day and age? It's a scary kind of proposition that it's shifted that much in 4 years. But now it's people going direct to the source, to content creators, to citizen journalists, which is cool, but it also has its risks, which is that you are not a full-time journalist. So you probably aren't doing all the checks and balances, but maybe you're more trustworthy because you don't have an org over you going, you kind of can't talk about this thing. You can't push on that.
So the money is actually, it's going both ways. It could be the thing that, someone is telling you what to do because it's their money and they're employing you, so you're restricted, or you're doing this, as a hobby or a citizen journalist. Yeah. But you don't have enough money out of it unless you're running a Substack with, however many people per month or whatever it is.
Or streaming revenue, YouTube revenue.
Which you have to spend time and energy building and investing in. Yeah. So the money could go either way there.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And people choose to pay, I think, a creator who they trust and they see every day, who's publishing every day, who they can talk to live on stream over a org. And I think that will be the general decentralization of society. It's happening. Like that is the trend. Like that is if you follow the trend line, that's where it's going. Well, crypto plays into that. I didn't don't have to get into crypto, but again, pros and cons. But I think again that will be the financial layer of that kind of world over time. But it's an interesting landscape, man.
And what was that like? What was that decision like for you to leave Amnesty to go all in on this? Because Amnesty was...
it's a dream job for me.
Exactly. Yeah. So, how was that decision for you at the time?
Very, very difficult, but felt like the right one so often. I actually couldn't wait to do it, and it was the weirdest feelings. I'm like, I know I'm going to I really hope I was as grateful as I could be for having an opportunity like this, because I'm going to look back on it with like really fond memories and going, oh man, what if I stayed? I could have done this and that, or did I do the best I could with this and that? But I think again, I was 31, just turned 31, and me and Such were getting married the following year. We don't have any kids yet, and I was like, this whole your job, go all in on your startup thing. It's not the kind of thing that's like you can easily do, as time goes on. You can still do it, but it's just harder. And I just thought, now's my time. I want to feel that, like we were talking before, what's that sort of discomfort or pain that you can put up with that will be fulfilling. Like you'll be balanced by fulfillment. And for me, it was taking that shot and proving to myself that I could do it. And we didn't get funding, but I proved to myself there were so many things I could do that I was like, I just want to know if
where this leads,
and who will I be after this? And by the end of it, I was like so locked in, with like work ethic and efficiency and judgment and like all these things that I wouldn't have had, I think, if I wasn't forced with my back against the wall. And as like the one of the founders of the company, like every morning you got to show up on the Zoom calls, even if you're wrecked, full energy, like, all right, guys, here's what we're doing. Let's go. Like, G everyone up. And that was a great lesson too. So I think it's worth it for anyone listening. If you haven't started a company, if you have an idea and you want to do something, it's never going to be a bad thing to try. It not working out on the first go, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. You just, as long as you intentionally figure out what you did wrong and how to do it better, because it's a journey and a path of failure before you hit success. I know that's a bit of a trope these days, but it's spot on. I can be a testament to that. And fulfillment, you become the person that you always want to be. You grow into that ideal version of yourself that you're like, I could see myself doing it maybe one day. Man, you give it a crack and you just become a bit battle hardened, but you never lose that, what I call like roptimism. It's like realist optimism. You're like, be a realist, but never lose that optimism, because that's where that source of energy will keep pushing you, right? So I'm sure you can relate to that too. Yeah,
absolutely. And I really love something you were talking about earlier around you just being the recipient of the idea at the time and going, this is I have to turn this into something. And you mentioned a Michael Jackson quote.
Oh man, it was like, I always think about this quote because this is how I feel about motivation. It's like, again, you could be sitting there with music back in the day. I would get an idea for a melody at 2 a.m. and I'd go, it's all right, I'll just wake up and write it, and I'll always forget it. So I ended up waking up at 2 and writing it down. And that was always the lesson for me, which is when it comes,
my voice notes
capitalize. Yeah, then I re-listened to it and it's like, blah, 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 blah. I was like, it sounded so much better at 2 a.m. Anyway, so Michael Jackson, he used to say this. He's like, I'm not the artist. I'm not the creator. I'm a vessel. I'm just open. The idea, its time has come. The music, the song, whatever it may be, is there. It exists, but I'm the antenna that receives that idea, and I'm the one that just gives it life. And it's so true. And Rick Rubin, who's a famous producer, he wrote an awesome book, which I recommend people to buy. Man, I can't remember the name of it now.
The Creatives.
Way or something. The Creative
Way,
or so cool.
I get a lot of clips on Insta
about it. Yeah. The algorithm is working well.
Yeah.
He says the same thing. He goes, the idea exists out in the ether somewhere, and if you don't act on it, someone else will act on it. It's so true. Even with Thinkrs, I was like, no one's talking about this media bias as much in it, and then all of a sudden, a year later, and I'm like, dude, I just knew that
it was bubbling.
This was the pulse of society, and if it just takes certain individuals that are keen enough on that topic, who are open to pursuing that topic, to give it life.
You just have to broadcast out and see which of those will
correct.
Pick it up, right?
Look at everything in this room. Look at everything around us. All these things, the mics, the TVs, have all been made by people that were just obsessed with an idea and went, "This is my passion project. I'm going to give it life." Right?
Like
the world is surrounded with that. As Steve Jobs or someone said that. He's like, once you realize that no one smarter than you has made everything that's around you, you go, damn, man, why can't I make
Just try it.
Just try it.
Yeah. Well, I love that because it links to something that I think Elizabeth Gilbert the author.
Why did I
of
think
Eat,
you were about
Pray-
to say Elizabeth Holmes for a second? And I was like,
We ain't going down that
No, we're
route.
not doing that. Yeah, Eat, Pray, Love. Yeah, cool. Yeah.
But she did a TEDx. I think it was a TEDx talk around the genius.
Okay.
And how the origin of that term, of what we now use as a descriptor for someone who's like a crazy smart genius,
Einstein,
almost too smart for their own well-being.
Yeah. The crazy genius.
Yeah. And the idea, the original meaning of the word was something where like a genus is like a spirit or something that will actually get into you.
No way.
And then you produce the idea.
Really?
You produce the work based on that genus that's out there, and that you are basically, like you said, an antenna for. And that's why authors can't answer the most common question: where do you get your ideas?
Yeah.
It's like, well,
Came to
we
me.
don't know.
Yeah,
We're interested in
yeah.
things.
Yep.
Even talking about free will on one of the previous episodes, it's like, well, where do we actually get all these ideas and motivations from? Is it, and you can't put your finger on it.
No.
But you can run with it.
That's all you've got.
Yeah.
What else are you going to do? You're going to
honestly.
go, oh, nah, I guess I won't.
Oh, nah. Well, and coming back to, and I'd love to jump into your, before we wrap up, talk about your time at Amnesty, because, the alternative was staying there, right? And you were super happy in the roles that you were doing. I'd love to, maybe the big one for me is the Assange case.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe take us through, when you first joined.
Yep.
Was Assange already, was that already underway? Give me the timeline.
No, so he was, Assange was in the Ecuadorian embassy when I joined.
Okay, so he was already...
He was already in London, and he'd been there for quite some time. And when I joined, there wasn't actually that much that had been worked on with the Assange campaign. And I remember going, surely we should be doing a bit more on his case. Like, controversial figure. A lot of people don't like him. I get all that. But, I don't know him. I don't necessarily like him. But it's unjust that someone that's published the truth, WikiLeaks, right? Again, it's never been disputed. It's all fact. It's all from the horse's mouth. He has published all this to make us more informed. We are far more informed now on how governments act on our behalf than what we were before. He's now being locked up and persecuted, and that really impacts journalism and publishing, because what it does is it scares all other journalists that go, man, I'm onto a scoop. I need to publish this, but I don't want to end up like Assange. And so that's what I was most worried about too, which is like, this is going to make us far less informed. It's going to constrict.
Plus, this is within the dynamics of the Australian-US imperial relationship as well.
Where we're a vassal state in many ways, unfortunately.
We just take it when, they imprison or, want to extradite one of our citizens for, like you said, doing their job.
That's right.
So the precedence that this lays is something that was on your mind, obviously.
It was definitely on my mind, and I was interested in WikiLeaks since the uni days. And actually one of my best mates at the time was like unemployed, and he was like reading the case notes of Assange's case, and he was like getting really annoying and obsessed with it. I was like on the train to work one day, and he's like messaging me going, bro, why can't you talk to someone about it? Like, why have they missed that this didn't happen? And I'm like, dude, can you just shut up? Like, I get it, but just shut up. And it was every day, and he was crashing at mine at the time, and I was like, literally like, all right, dude, I will talk to people.
So I will get a job at Amnesty International just to shut you up.
Just to make you shut the hell up, and then I'm gonna leave. And then I went in, and I was like, and he's like, but like, don't risk your job. Like, if you're gonna piss people off. I was like, no. I feel like I've built enough good capital with some of the senior managers here and the directors, getting to know them after a while. And so I asked a few of them, and the answers, to be honest, just weren't that sufficient to me about why we weren't doing more in his campaign. Why were we just releasing media releases, which were like ChatGPT paragraphs of like, it's not good.
Reminder.
That's about it. Yeah. But why aren't we campaigning? Why is there no movement? Why is there no like people on the street or like lobbying government? And there was a moment where I really pushed with the I won't name names, but anyway, I pushed with some senior directors and they were like, we'll look into it. And they budged a little bit and were like, all right, we might look at doing something a bit more, but we have to get approval from the London office. And I was like, oh man, it's so annoying. We can't just act independently. And so I learned a lot I love Amnesty and it does amazing work. I also learned a lot about the bureaucratical and realistic nature of how when you put human beings in jobs, people influence theories, human rights codes, and methodologies can all be impacted by human beings.
Every
right?
institution is just a bunch of human beings.
It's just a bunch of human beings, and they all have their own biases, and some of them may not want to do something as much as they want to do something else. They're time poor. We don't have that much money as a not-for-profit. There's all these factors. Everyone means well at the end of the day, right? Most of them. And the Secretary General of Amnesty International, Kumi Naidu, was visiting, and we were hosting a business leaders lunch, which we were organising with him. And I got along with him really well. He was a cool dude. He was having a smoke out the front one time, and we were just chatting, and it was an awesome experience, one of the best in my life. And and he was giving me tips, and I remember he was like, Chamira, let me tell you, okay, number one lesson in life, you need to sleep more. He's like, you know why I have so much gray hair? You know why I look so tired? I never sleep. I literally slept 2 hours, like South African guys, 2 hours of sleep last night. I was like, all right, man, I'll remember that. And I got him in a cab after the event on the drive back to Amnesty, and the director of Amnesty Australia and the Secretary General of the movement, were all in the cab. He was sitting in front of me, and I went, now's my chance. I need to grill him on why aren't we doing more?
Exactly.
And I was like, tell me, man. I was like, you said in your speech to us today, if you care about something, if you're passionate and you think it's unjust, come to me, make a stand. We want employees to care about things. And I said, so why aren't you doing more on Assange? And he goes, you want to know why I wasn't sleeping last night? I was reading about this Assange case. Because he'd come from Greenpeace. He just started. And he goes, look, it's very complex by the looks of it. We had this chat, and I said, look, I think you're missing something here. Like, there's no way that we shouldn't be doing more. Do you understand how impactful this is on journalism, on XYZ? And it just sounded like there was a bureaucratical kind of resistance.
Is that also to do with the fact that it's London as the head office?
Yeah, and they had their own opinions.
He was, in the embassy at, yeah.
Of course, yeah. It was. I was learning about how there were a lot of voices coming in that didn't necessarily, they weren't as on side. So then we went into the kitchen. He goes, can someone make me a tea? And we're like, yeah, I'll get you a tea. We walked in the kitchen, and by chance, it's like head of legal, head of campaigns, director, and all there. And I went, there's my time.
Let's just nut this out now over tea.
Yeah, they're like, what are you guys talking about? I'm like, so we're talking about the Assange case. And we were saying Australia should be doing more in it. And we can do more in it, right? Because I was talking to the guy that I first brought this up with, who was like, yeah, we could probably do more. And he goes, yeah, look, I'm down. Like, I think that we're missing something, so fair enough. And I'm like, all right, well, legal, like that shouldn't be a problem then, because you said, and she was like, yeah. And then he was like watching everyone kind of go, all right. And I go, okay, cool. So literally the funniest thing at that moment, this like an admin support officer from the org walked in the middle of everyone so inappropriately, and she's like, kitchen party, and just literally walks through. I'll never forget. I just remembered it popped into my head, and I went, oh my God, not now. And literally everyone just looked at her as she walked past, and she turned her back and just poured some hot water into a tea. She was like, kitchen party. She didn't know that everyone was like...
No one was jumping in with her.
And then she just went back and she was like, woo, just walks off. I was like, fuck. I was like, anyway, back to this. So can we lock in?
Assange's future was literally on the balance.
I don't know how much this I should be saying, but it's a great story, man. It's like a great memories. And I said, okay, we confirm in January next year or wherever it was, like, we'll put some budget aside, we'll take it away from something else, and we agree that we will, we're going to do a move, we're going to do a protest, we're going to lobby the government, we're going to get a petition. And we went, cool. And that was an amazing moment of like, kudos to Amnesty for saying, if you care about something, come to us. Amazing.
And then following through. And
they did follow through, and we 400,000 people signed the petition. Got to organise an awesome media conference in Martin Place with Bob Carr, Quinton Dempster. We had all sorts of people from all over the world, signing this petition. And we were always challenged by the true Assange supporters being like, Amnesty, why aren't you doing more? And John Pilger, shout out, he was one of my heroes growing up for journalism, one of the best journalists. I remember writing to him about this with an article saying, I want to try and get this article published about Assange. What do you think? He was like such an advocate for Assange. And he went, oh, typical Amnesty. you're sugarcoating everything. And I was like, oh my God, my hero is like ripping me to shreds. And it was one of the worst feelings. I literally took me like 2 days to get over that. Then I met him at one of the Martin Place talks, which was the first time I got to represent Amnesty. And I was like, I can't believe I'm talking with these people that are my heroes. And he shook my hand. We were like, like all good. Like, I'm glad we've all kind of aligned. And that's when the movement really took off. And that, again, is a big lesson, which is like the people on the ground, just getting people to sign signatures when they're getting yelled at, going, fuck off. Like, I don't care about this guy. They're there every day doing that work. And Amnesty is an amazing, huge org that has its pros and cons, but it will leverage its strengths to like join up with those, petition signers and advocates on the ground, people writing to their MPs every day, people knocking on the doors or standing in front of the US Embassy with signs, whoever it may be. Like it really is a movement. It's everyone chipping in. And at the end, when he was released this year in June, which I could not believe happened so quickly. Shout out, right? Like I was talking to his brother quite a lot during that time to try and get motions passed in Parliament at the start of this year. The first one with Andrew Wilkie was a huge one that everyone in Australian Parliament voted that it was unjust and we should do more. That was the first time they acknowledged it properly.
Officially.
Officially, yeah. The vote was on the record.
And by the way, this is after you'd left Amnesty.
This is after I left. So I was still in a Slack group with the Amnesty team, and I chatted to Gabriel on Signal, and he'd always be like, cool, any ideas? And I remember at that moment, it was like the end of everything. And I was like a liaison between the Amnesty team and him for a bit. And he was like, mate, we've done the motion, we've done this, we've done that. This was June, and he was like, do you have any ideas? Like, what should we do? We've got all these people that want to do something, but what do we do? I was like, mate, just give me some time to think, all right? And I'll come back to you. And within those 24 hours, he got released, or 48 hours he got released. I couldn't believe it. They had Jennifer Robinson, the lawyers, they had Kevin Rudd, everyone was working in the background. And I don't think he thought it was like a real thing, it was going to happen. And it was just such a crazy turn of events. And then I woke up and a mate flicked me an article going, apparently he's on a plane. I went, no, he's not. Don't be ridiculous. He's not on a plane. And I read it and I could not.
Working for years for this. He's on a plane back.
Yeah. And then I just could not fathom it. They're taking him to this little island off Australia. Kevin Rudd's with him. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I read it and I went, holy shit. And I'm at CMRI now, a different job. But, I've got a cool team and they were like supporting as well. And yeah, they were like, this is amazing, to watch kind of take place, and happen in front of you. And so, yeah, shout out to the broader community. It's written and people that chip away. And like we say, what's that thing that you care about that you're willing to do when no one's looking, when it sucks, when it doesn't feel great and you think you're bashing your head against a wall, but you keep going, which is what campaigning is, which is what startups are. Whatever it may be, keep going. Just always know that you might have these troughs and lulls, and they have words for those lulls in campaigning. They have words for that. The valley of death in startups where most people drop out. If you just stick it out and keep trying to improve, you will come out the other end as a tough mofo and you'll see the success you want, right? And so I think that's the biggest takeaway.
And what was the thing that changed? Like, why is Assange free now versus before?
So he did a plea deal. He took a plea bargain, which is like, from memory, there were like a handful of charges that were placed against him
by the US.
By the US, he conspired to hack the emails with Chelsea Manning. A number of things, but there was no proof that he conspired to hack because he had an informant, like any journalist would, that went, I've got access to all these emails. Do you want them? And any journo will go, yeah, sure, which is what he did. And so they couldn't prove that he helped him hack it or conspired to hack it. But and normally when you put charges, you have one dummy charge, which is like, so it's not the worst one. Yeah. So if you want to take a deal, you'll take the one that doesn't hurt you as much, but you have to go, all right, fine. And so that's the one. He took that and then went, you know what, I'm going to die in this jail. And if I take this and you give me immunity where I know that like I won't have to do jail time, we'll make it work. And the judge said, you've served 5 years in Belmarsh prison, the worst prison in London with like the worst people around you. And we're going to charge you, we're going to sentence you to 5 years of prison time for your acceptance that you were guilty. But because you've served 5, we'll wipe it. and therefore he had no prison time and he got to come back to Australia. But I think there were some restrictions on what he could or couldn't say. But it looks like since he's come back, he's keeping a very low profile, just trying to have
recover.
he saw his sons, he saw his wife. Yeah. He's like going out, getting amongst nature and living his life. I'm sure he'll come back with something though at some point. So yeah, it was nice closure, man, for everybody. I think on that story, and
absolutely.
Glad that hopefully journalism will keep thriving.
Yeah, and it was such a wild time. And shout out to Scotty Marsh, the graffiti artist who did the artwork for my book.
Great artist.
Which your quote is on the back of.
Yeah, it's so cool.
And then Scotty did a fantastic mural of Assange with the Free Assange hashtag.
That's
during,
right. Iconic,
yeah, off the back of George Street somewhere, I think, in the city. And I love that was, such a great, it's one arm of many arms of a campaign, right?
But it won't work without everyone.
You need every element, right?
Yeah, the lawyers couldn't do it off the bat. The movement couldn't do it themselves.
Yeah,
and family couldn't do it. And it's everyone.
Like you said earlier about those early lessons with your dad around community and the everything in this room. Yeah. Nothing's here without everyone else.
Correct.
We are not independent beings. So
correct. It's all one part of
one love, baby.
Of everything. One love.
What implications now are there for journalism, but also the Australia-USA relationship? Especially now, given we're back with Trump, and also just everything going on in terms of we're fresh out of the class consciousness, health insurance CEO shooter. There's just so much just always happening in this space. So in terms of journalism and in terms of how Australia now views the US and vice versa, where we had one of our own citizens as a pawn. What are the implications here? Do you see fallout? Do you see change? Do you see a change in consciousness, or is it all just business as usual?
I think him getting released does give people hope that anything is possible, even if it comes with conditions. Everyone I talked to after 5 years of campaigning was like, he's going to die in prison. He's never getting released, right? The start of that year was tough. I was like, this is tough, man. This is dire, but we've got to keep going. You just got to keep going. And I think him being released was a good news story where people, probably many people have forgotten about it by now, but for them, they go, wow, like that actually happened. The guy's alive. He doesn't have to serve jail. Everyone's like, obviously he's in jail, right? When he comes here, I'm like, nah. They couldn't believe it. It was like unbelievable. But I think that it does show that we have some sway with the US because there was a lot of lobbying from Kevin Rudd, who was the ambassador. There was a lot of lobbying from Albo. Albo getting in changed the game because Morrison didn't do jack for Assange when he was in. And Albo really put it on the radar of Parliament and would make a lot of behind-the-scenes diplomatic lobbying and, endeavours with Biden and others. So it shows that there is a relationship. I don't know how it'll go with Trump if he's clearly come in, bull in a china shop as always, and trying to tariff many countries and kind of obviously be the boss man of the world as he views the US and its role in the world, and by putting down tariffs and trying to scare people off by going, look, you know how this deal works. We're the kings. If you want to deal with us, you deal with us on our terms, and you can't be taking money for us for nothing. And so I don't know how that will go. With Australia, he made fun of Kevin Rudd and said he was one of the least intelligent people, or he heard he's quite an unintelligent guy.
I remember, yeah.
And a bit of a nasty guy. And so Rudd has had to wipe his Twitter comments about Trump and has made a very diplomatic statement just to make things work by the looks of it.
Just to be able to do his job.
He's going to do his job. So let's see how that goes. But I think at the end of the day, we are part of a global system. We have our allegiances with the Five Eyes, with NATO, with Western countries, and also with other countries. But I guess our allegiances lie where they do, where it comes to protection and defense from the US, and we do become a bit more USified, if you will, over time. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see who gets in, if it's Albo or Dutton. Because I think if it's Dutton, there's no doubt that there'll be a lot more probably collaboration and even pandering, I guess, to Trump, whereas I feel Albo might try and push back a bit more. So it's an interesting times for all of us, no doubt.
Oh, indeed.
Oh, indeed.
Oh, indeed.
Indeed.
Well, we have to wrap it up
Yeah.
in a second, unfortunately, because I've got so much more that
Just getting
I
started.
could run through with you.
Yeah.
Just quickly, you're now a part of an AI Makers Lab in Parramatta.
Yep.
In West Sydney, and alongside this, you're also working on an AI fashion website called Style Advisor.
Yeah.
Can you give us a quick recap on what you're working on there?
Style Advisor was literally people listening, ChatGPT. I'm sure you all know of it now. And basically, if you don't, it's like it's AI becoming mainstream. It's a website and app that you can use. You can talk in natural language, i.e., literally any language, English, whatever, and AI will do what you want it to do. It'll talk to you back with that, and within like a split second. So they built a thing called custom GPTs, which are like the Apple phone's version of the App Store, where you can create your own niche AI use case, and anyone can use it. And if you have enough users, you can earn money off it. I was like, that sounds pretty damn cool. I missed the Apple, App Store wave. I was too busy partying at uni, as we all were. And I regret not getting more involved in tech at that age. So I was like, let's just try and build some stuff because it's interesting. I had like 10 ideas. So I've tried like an AI financial advisor. It'll scan the news every day. It'll scan and analyze stocks and tell me which ones are worth buying, just out of interest. I'm like, why wouldn't you want to have that? And I think that's where the future will go, where you have a board of advisors, which are all AI. Yeah. One that measures your health, one that measures this. And again, that could be quite scary, dystopian for a lot of people. And I think that, again, it has to come with checks and balances for sure. But the Style Advisor was literally, my wife was like, it's so hard to buy clothes. Like, I can never find anything in my budget that fits me and this and that. And I was like, what if let's try and build something where you can just upload a photo of yourself and the AI can tell you based on your skin tone, based on your size, like what do you recommend would suit me for a wedding in summer, under $500, under $200, under $50. Find me deals on blah that would suit me in a hipster style, in a luxury style, whatever. And I was like, cool, I'll try that for myself too, like try and get a new pair of shoes. And I just, it's not even really programming. That's the beauty. Anyone can use it. You just have to pay for the ChatGPT subscription and you can build these without knowing coding, which I don't either. And so I built it, and it's literally just a trial product. Got a website for it, styleadvisor.io, I think. It's been a little while, but I'm going to try work on it more through this AI lab, which is the first AI lab in Parramatta, which been working on with a guy, Lele Huang, who's a community leader for tech in Parramatta. And we're really trying to build up this group where you learn how to build AI products. If you've never learnt about it, you learn what AI is and how it works. If you're a bit apprehensive and you want to know more, and you can create photos and videos using AI for your business if you want. Automation, they're the 4 pillars trying to push forward and hopefully get some government funding or some, to keep it moving. But the retention and excitement from people joining has been awesome. So I picked up that Style Advisor project after joining this group again and going, let's just give it a crack.
Rekindled.
But if anyone's interested, every Saturday afternoon in Parramatta, definitely reach out for the details. And it'd be great to create with all the learnings from Thinkrs as well, like ethical and safe AI that's also quite innovative and can actually help humanity at the end of the day, right?
That's what we're aiming for, hey?
That's what we're aiming for.
Well, just the one final question before we wrap up.
Yeah.
We didn't get to dive too deep into the Three Browns, your podcast,
Yes.
but any advice for me based on the learnings you've had after how many episodes now?
It's like 62, 64, something like that.
So what advice?
2 seasons.
Give my ass.
Man, the best learnings. Look, we haven't done as many interviews. We've only done like 3. It's been a lot of banter and chats between the 3 of us, Greg and Keith. But I think the biggest lesson for us was stop talking over each other. And if you don't have to say, yeah, while someone's talking, just don't say it.
It's just interrupting the audio.
Oh my
constantly.
God. It was so rough. We actually, we recorded in 2021. We did 4 episodes on Anchor, an app on our phone, a podcast one. And we went to one of Greg's house, put it on the middle of the dining table, and we just shouted over each other for like 4 episodes. We listened to it back and we were like, dude, that was rough. We can't release this. And then after I got married, they were my MCs. And Keith was like, let's rekindle this, man. Let's do it, boys. And it was great energy. And we were like, 2 years later, let's do it. And it was it was so much better. We were like so considerate of like, just don't talk
Of each
when the
other.
other person's talking, because it just became blads on a night out. Like, oh mate, and we've really worked on that. But I think adding value to your listeners is a big part. Like now I really try and think about who is the person that's listening and what can I give them? Like it's like what exactly would I want them to leave with, which will benefit their life. And ChatGPT and talking about that a year ago was really helpful for a lot of people. Talking about our relationships with our parents, the episode 10 where we all cried. There was the only episode where we cried. The rest is all laughter. Talking about our parents, it got us. And I think that was very vulnerabilities obviously there. But I think you've got that in spades. You're very genuine, vulnerable, open to, you can talk about anything. So I think I love this theme, man. You've got an eclectic group of people already by the sounds of it. So I think keep going with it. Keep asking any curious question that comes to mind, and you're going to do awesome, bro.
Well, thank you for contributing to that eclectic group here today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for listening to the Hot Nerds podcast. We don't host ads, but if you find any value in what our team does, please feel free to support us via the links in our show notes or buy my book, as it greatly assists with producing this show. Thank you again. See you soon. Stay hot, stay nerdy.